Just might want to be careful about having someone right in front of here, make sure it slides through.
Yeah, I was thinking of that.
But other than that,
Kinman, and they're going to tell their stories today and give us some insight on what has happened to them and where their heritage has been and where it's going and all of that sort of thing. So, I'm happy to present both of them.
All right. Felice first.
You want to sit though, Felice, when you do that? There you go.
Well, I'll tell you, I was born in Montreal, and you probably all know that by now. I was raised in Massachusetts. I went from Sport up to Laconia, New Hampshire, which I was raised in a house that was built before the Revolutionary War. The clay was taken from the land and dried into bricks, and they used it on 7 fireplaces in the house. And they were all quite beautiful. She had all named papers in the house. My aunt and uncle did it over. And I remember one of them with Billy Diamond's Hush You Girls. And it was really cute. Well, I got in her dressing room and I painted lipstick all over me. And all over the mirror and all over everything else. I got kind of a paddling for her. She had a paddle that just paddled me. I had to go get it. But anyway, I didn't get in her makeup anymore. But anyway, the house was really beautiful. In her bedroom, it was green and white striped wallpaper on 3 walls. And then on the back wall, it was shaded from maroon into pinks. And then there's a big round circle and it was green and white stripe in it. And that matched the 3 walls of the green and white striped paper. And she had always this flowered paper. It was in a basket. And they had flowers in it. And this was in her music room. And all the rooms were all done in pastel colors. And it was, as a child growing up, it was really beautiful. But she had a lot of acreage there. And she had 60 acres in low, medium, and high bush blueberries. And the blueberries was as big as my thumb, if not bigger, some of them. And she had rented that out to the people that I worked for in Waterville, Maine. And they came and harvested blueberries. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go to school over in Germany and get my graduation ticket, and I was the floor manager there. And I enjoyed it. It was really nice. I had 179 people working for me, including 2 men. And they shuffled me from Maine to New Hampshire to Vermont and back into Canada again. And they paid my way and everything like that, and I had a great time doing it. But as I was younger, there was another couple that came in and took me. I was by myself. My uncle had been killed by lightning. And so my aunt, she died of natural causes. So then I went to live with these other people, and their name was Bolivar. If you read the paper last week, you probably saw it in the paper. And I was here in Payson. They brought me up from Williams Air Force Base, because I was allergic to the sun down there. I got sunstroke and heat exhaustion. So anyway, we stayed here for maybe a couple of years, and then we went to Germany, Ronstone, Germany. And we were there probably 3-4 years, and then they moved us to Australia, Sydney, Australia. And we went from there into Holland and into England and into Roswell, New Mexico, up into Maine, Dow Air Force Base, and Limestone Air Force Base. And I remained in Maine, working at the blueberry factory until I came out to California. And then I got married. I was out here for about 2-3 years, and I got married. And he's since deceased. And I have some pictures in my purse of me when I got married and all the kids. I made my own wedding dress and all the girls' dresses and the little girls' dresses, and we just had a great time. And went here and there. Went on to get married, and we had a fairly good marriage. I can't say it was all perfect, and I don't think anybody can say that the marriage was perfect, but I raised his 2 children, and then I got 5 other children through friends of mine and through the courts because their parents had deceased or whatever. And I raised the 7 kids, and they all left home with a wonderful graduation and everything like that. And they were all married, and they're here and there and everywhere. Matter of fact, I've got some over in Iraq right now, and there was one over in Desert Storm. There was 2 in Desert Storm, rather. And there's some still over in Iraq on the Navy ship over there. But other than that, I've been around Payson. I've held a good, a good foot on Payson because this town really applied to me in some ways, because up in Maine we had a sawmill up there. I love the smell of cutting lumber and all that kind of stuff. So, Payson just fit me, so I've always come back to Payson. I leave for a while, and I come back again. But I've been in Payson for about 40 years and better. So that's it.
Felice,
But I've had a good life.
tell them how you were raised by the military man and wife.
Well, they were always so good to me. Listen, what they gave their kids, they gave me. They had 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. And what they gave them, they gave me too. And they were just wonderful to me. I can't say enough about them. They were just great people. And I called her mom half the time, and I called him dad half the time, and they didn't mind it. My aunt told me I wasn't to call anybody by their first name. I was either to address them as grandma or uncle or aunt or whatever, but I was never to call them by their first name. But I was raised pretty strict. But I appreciate it today. I've been a Christian all my life, and I've gone to church, and I don't know anything else but church. So I just love Payson. I've had a great life. I've gone around the world twice, and I've had a great time. I still got my trunk that my clothes were in that I took overseas. Her name is still on it, and I'll still treasure that for the rest of my life.
Felice, you didn't tell them about the famous people you knew in Hyannisport.
Oh,
That's true, yes.
Joseph and Rose Kennedy. They were one of the most precious people. I never did know they had their children, and I never did know they had a retarded child until I was 23 years old, I want you to know. And I always went by the name of Patchy to everybody. They never called me Felice. I didn't know my real name until I was 21. They just called me Patchy. But anyway, they were real nice people. I used to go over and sit on the knee, and she'd give me milk and cookies, and I'd pull his ear and pull his glasses off, pull his hair. I guess I was an ornery little kid. But they were real sweet people to me. And right up to the very end, I stayed in touch with them.
They lived next door to it, didn't they?
Yes, there was one house between us and them. But they were real nice people. They were great.
Where's your home there now? I mean, it was sold then.
It was in Laconia, New Hampshire, and there's quite a history to Laconia. Laconia got Parade Road, that was the name of it, because that was the height of the land, and they could see if there's any Indians at war, starting fires, or anything like that. And it was quite an historical place, really. And there was 11 houses that was opened up for the crippled children benefit, and my aunt opened hers up, and she got first prize opening it up and everything, and that was the 2nd year after she had done her house over and everything, and it was really beautiful. And I had some little teacups, and I had pansies in them, and I took first prize on my teacups with the little pansies in them. And they were really pretty. They were all little china cups that I had. They were really beautiful. I guess that's it.
Thank you.
All right.
My turn to
It's your turn now,
further
Sue.
introduction. I feel ashamed to have everybody here to listen to me because I don't think my life is exciting. Now, my husband came to Arizona in a covered wagon when he was 6 years old, and that to me is exciting. But I do. I was born to a wonderful Christian mother and dad, the second oldest. And would you believe, I've spent 30-some-odd years trying to find birthdays for Grandpa and Grandma and great-grandma and Grandpa, and I don't even know my own. My mother always said I was born on June 11th. My birth certificate says May 11th. So you don't. I didn't know, I didn't have a birth certificate before my mother was alive to find out. So anyway, any May or June, it doesn't matter. Legally, I'm born May 11th. Family-wise, my birthday's on June 11th. That's what my mother said. But anyway, I was born in Texas. And at about the age of 1, my daddy decided to homestead on the plains of Texas, out at Pumpkin Center, not Arizona Pumpkin Center. There's a Pumpkin Center near Lamesa County, Texas, Lamesa, Dawson County, Texas. And 3 weeks ago, I got to go back to Dawson County, Texas, and look up the old homestead place. It's all gone, and they're pumping oil all over the place there. My dad was wise enough, after we lived there 5 years to establish the homestead, and we just didn't make it. Daddy didn't have any financial backing behind him. In 1 year, he lost 3 crops: tornado, sandstorm, and hailstones. Beat it to he didn't raise a thing, and that put us out of the farming business. You know, that's what we were doing. And besides, I got 6 years old, and we had to move to town to get me in school. So we left the homestead. But my daddy kept the mineral rights, and I get my 1/6 of a half of a small portion of the oil well we saw pumping 3 weeks ago. And of course, with the price of gas, I got a $198 check this month. So that's for my dad. Sometimes it's just been 30 though, by the time it's all divided down. But my dad had enough forethought to withhold the mineral rights on that homestead. And while we lived there, when we were desperate, Dad was a mechanic. My mother always said he could wire up a wash pot, and we'd ride like we had good sense. He could make it run. And he would go to adjoining counties that hadn't had the sandstorm, the hail, or whatever happened to our crops, and run combines, and he was in demand. He could stay away for the whole harvest season because he could take any old combine, oil it up, make the part that they needed, and fix it up, and it'd run like new. And my dad was a mechanic. He wasn't a builder. He wasn't anything otherwise, but he was a really good mechanic. But he met my mother. He left the farm in Vernon, Texas. Now that's Wilburg. I got to go to the old farmhouse 3 weeks ago too, in Wilburg County. And the house that my grandmother and grandfather lived in is still there. It's all changed. There's no barns. It's all planted in cotton. But the house is there that I used to run around and play tag with all the cousins and when we went home to Grandma's house. And it was a neat thing to go. My brothers came by, for 2 brothers from California, their wives, a son, my sister, and they picked me up and took me to Texas. We met another brother from Idaho and a sister from St. Paul, Minnesota. All 6 of us went to Lubbock, Texas to a wedding, and then we toured with Dawson County and Wilburg County and saw the old home place and the homesteads, the cemeteries, and all those neat places that I didn't think I'd ever get to go back to again. So my brother, that was the end of June. I got to do that. And my brother said, Sue, keep your purse in the car. You won't need any money on this trip. And he paid us deluxe way. And I told several of you that my sister and I stepped out of our $200 a night embassy suite in our $3 yard sale attire. And we just felt plumb classy. But that's for now. When I was 12 years old, my daddy left Texas. Depression was on and times were hard. He had his own garage and he gave too much car work away. You know, he was good-hearted. He fixed all the colored people's cars in town and showed them how to do it. Everybody else's that didn't have the money, he fixed them and bought the parts. Well, we weren't making a very good living. So he went to California, got a job, and his brother drove us out, the family. There was Mom and 5 children and Uncle Hubbard. And we drove day and night because you didn't have motel fare. We did in those days. And we had a fabulous trip going to California. We'd never been out of Texas, you know. And when we crossed the divide, my mother was a school teacher. And she taught us all the lessons of geography and trees and everything we saw was exciting and adventurous. And we had a wonderful trip to California. We lived a block and a half from the ocean. We rented a duplex, an apartment in Long Beach, California. And we just had hauled water in Oakley Union, Texas for 6 years, hauled water for 12 miles. Every drop we had to haul. And when we got to the ocean, we just lived on the beach. We'd go in the morning, we'd go home for lunch, we'd go in the afternoon, and sometimes Dad would come home from work and say, anybody for the beach? And yay! We'd go to the beach again. So we loved the beach. We didn't sunbathe, we just played in the water. It was so neat. But I've had a good life. It's not exciting, but I've had a good life. We had a good family life. My mother and Dad had 6 children, and we were all, you know, a good family. We still get along great and have a good time together. And I married young. I graduated from high school on one Friday night. I was 17 on the next Friday night, and I got married on the next Friday. And my mother said, Sue, all you have left to do now is just die. You've done it all in 3 weeks. But anyway, after our first baby was born, we came back to Arizona. We had gone to California and lived there until I graduated from high school and got married. Then my husband's family lived in Williams, Arizona, and he wanted to come home to Arizona. So we loaded up our baby and our few belongings and headed for Arizona. And I've lived in Arizona all the rest of my life. So I was born in Texas, went to school in California, and have lived all the rest of the time, 60 years in Arizona, and 50 some odd of it in Payson. Now, we came to Payson in 51, January of 51. In order to get a pioneer certificate, you had to be here before 1912, or your ancestors did. Or an early settler, you had to be here before 1950. And we came January 51, so we qualified for a resident. But I helped set up those dates, and I didn't feel like I deserved anything else but a resident. And I'm glad to be a resident of Payson, Arizona. We've had a good life. My children have been raised here, gone to school here. And let's see, my youngest one said, Mom, I'm so lucky to be born, to get to go to school in Payson. He weighed about 112 pounds with rocks in his pockets, and he was Mighty Mo, quarterback on the football team. He said, Mom, they wouldn't even waste a uniform on me at any other school. Anyway, it's been a good life, and when we moved here, I have to tell you, in 1951, they used to have trout season closed during the winter time, and they'd open it on May 1st. Well, we'd been here 2 weeks in Payson, 2 weeks in Payson. As a family, we lived here that long, and went fishing, and my little son was lost all night long. Payson shut down the businesses. Everybody in Payson turned out to hunt. They held arms down Tonto Creek. We'd gone to Tonto Creek, just below the fish hatchery, to fish and to have a picnic and fish for the afternoon. And they found a flashlight on one trip down that they dropped when they came back by. That's how close together the hunters were that were looking for my baby. The next morning, Norman Winters found him early in the morning, about 10 miles away, in the most rugged country of the Rim, between Horton Creek and Tonto Creek. He said the cliffs and the canyons were just gigantic. He was 2.5 years old and found safe and sound. And they said that he had been covered up with pine needles. And he didn't even catch cold, and it was 31 degrees that night. Freezing, below freezing. And he didn't even catch cold. And that night when I put him to bed, I said, "Johnny, who came to find you while you were lost?" Well, he said, "Mommy, you were lost. Where were you?" I said, "Well, we were hunting for you all night long. Who came?" "Oh, a big black dog." And I said, "Really?" I thought he'd say the man on horseback, that had found him the next day. I said, "What did the dog do?" He got his pajama sleeve and just shook his arm real much. And I said, "Honey, what did the dog say?" And he tried 3 animal imitations. Mama, it didn't sound like that. He'd try again, and the 3rd time he says, "Oh, I'm tired, I'll go to sleep." So I don't know what God sent to protect my baby over time.
Wow.
Some animal did, and kept him warm and covered him up with pine needles. Norman Winters saw the indentation of an animal's body lying there on top of the pine needles. So God is good. And that was my introduction to Payson. And my introduction to genealogy was that I had a younger brother who was a doctor of music and directed a choir from Springfield, Missouri, and he took them on a choir trip to Boston, Massachusetts. And his choir members on tour found a headstone out behind the Old North Church in Boston, Massachusetts, with my brother's name on it, John Leverett.
Leverett.
And they called him, "Come look, Dr. John, come and look." And when he saw it, he just about passed out, because we thought we were the only Leveretts in the whole world. We didn't know anybody else, just our family, And he called me up after he got home and he said, "Sue, you've got more time to research than I have. See if we're related. John Leverett, 1632 to 16 something else, on this ornate headstone behind the Old North Church in Boston, Massachusetts." Well, I found his records, and I've got mine, but I haven't meshed them yet. I don't know. Anyway, it's intriguing. That started me on genealogy, but what do? Genealogy? How do you search history? I hadn't the vaguest idea. But I did know Viola Goodnow, who was a Mormon, and Joanne Thompson, who was a Mormon, and I had heard that they knew all about genealogy, they do it as part of their religion. So I went to Viola first, and she said, "Why, sure, take this packet of pedigree charts and these family group sheets and fill out all you know, and then write letters to everybody else in the family that's alive, and get all the information you can, and then come back and we'll help you. Well, I've even got a helper, a genealogical helper that has to do with nothing but genealogy. What? I said, a magazine on genealogy? I never heard of any such thing. Anyway, she started me off, and that week that I got the phone call, Joanne Thompson had an article in the Little Payson Roundup, come to the library and learn how to research your family history. I was at the first meeting, and I went every night, once a week. She had this little meeting at the public library on Main Street, and that's how I got started into genealogy. And it's the neatest hobby. If you're new and have never gotten into genealogy, everybody's story is entirely different. Now, Felice was born a twin. A conjoined twin?
Siamese twins.
A Siamese twin. She didn't tell you that.
No, it was in the paper though. I mean,
Yeah,
they
but
probably
not
all read it.
everybody read the
No,
paper.
they didn't all read it.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was a Siamese thing.
See, I didn't have any of that. But anyway, genealogy is unique, and your story doesn't match anybody else's. But it blows your mind to know how many records are available. And you, as everybody knows, you start out with what you know and build from that and go backwards. And after 1850, up to 1850, back to 1850, I guess you'd say, the census is real good because every 10 years, the federal government had a census. But from 1850, behind 1850, they only put the head of the household and how many males and how many females. No names, not much help. So what did you do after that? I've got a great-grandfather, Thomas Aytes, A-Y-T-E-S. I found him in Young County, Texas in 1860 with my great-grandmother as 6 months old. Rebecca Ann Aytes, I know it's her. And I can't find him beyond that. So there's land records and church records and tax records and school records and
Military records.
military records. And every generation had there was a war about every generation of Americans. In my family, there has been anyway. And all kinds of records are available. And concerning land records, I think one of our classes up there is going to be on land records. Well, let me tell you a story. After we started the genealogy library, there were 4 ladies, Alma Finney, Dot Armour, Doris Morris, and Sue Owen. Decided to go to Salt Lake City together. And we put our $20 in the cup well of Doris's car and left at 4:30 on a Monday morning to go to Salt Lake City. And we got there that evening, and the next morning, bright and early, we were standing at the door when they opened, and we closed the door. We were the last ones out every night. And we did research. Well, Alma wasn't feeling too well, and she had not found any records. And one morning I left my glasses in the room, and I had to go back, and Alma was there rubbing her legs. They were hurting her. And I just said a little prayer for her and asked the Lord to help her, to give her strength, because it was a sacrifice for her to go when she didn't feel good, And I said, Lord, help her to find something real good today in the records. And she came home that night. She got me into land records. Now, we didn't know how to do land records. Nobody had ever taught us anything about it. And she found 2 or 3 generations, and she was so excited. And that's my story about land records. And I just got this family tree magazine last week or 2, And in here, there is a little article on they say a beginner's course on land records. And if anybody wants to copy this, you're welcome to it, but it's good. But I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know enough. It's all on computer now, Mary. And what isn't, they give you books and how to order them and where to get them. And in here, it says that Massachusetts and the New England states have land records from 1624. 1624 in a 12-volume set that's available. I didn't know that. But this is interesting, and if you'd like to copy it, you're welcome to, or pick up a family tree. It's the current issue. It's a good one on land records. But they tell you a lot of what do you call websites? Websites for land records. All right, my daddy's homestead records on the plains will be in those websites if I get the right one and know how to bring it up on my computer. And my grandpa, you see, land records tell you a whole lot. And wills and probates and homesteads, head rights, deeds, bill of sales, all of those are available in the courthouses if they all didn't burn. You know, some courthouses burn. But it's amazing how much is available and how much I need to research, intelligent research. But I thank you for coming. I feel like this is just a hit and miss, not very good. But genealogy is fun. It's my fun hobby. And I love it. It's fun, and we're just delighted that all of you are interested in it. Any of us that have been around, I don't know a whole lot, but I've been around a while. I'll be glad to help you any way I can. God bless you.